what we're going to do is we're just going to put together this kind of little homepage hero image here, banner here, just with welcome to our Flatpack Pizzeria and a little tagline there as well. So we'll be using everything that we've learnt about our CSS frameworks, Bulma. We'll be importing that and using some of its kind of built-in functionality. We'll also be creating our first component that isn't just kind of the app component. We'll be making a header component for this. So let's crack on. Okay, so I'm in the Pizzeria app that we've been building. It's exactly as we left it. Feel free to just open up your code from the previous lesson, or if you like, I have put this kind of starter code down below just in case you've lost it or you've been experimenting and maybe things have got a bit out of whack. It means that you can kind of just say, right, clean slate, we are starting again from scratch. So it's entirely up to you how you actually approach this. So yeah, we've done this. Hi, welcome to my website. And if I down here in my terminal say npm start, the React app will start. It runs in Node. Oh, you see, okay. So this is something that you may have seen before, and this is quite a good opportunity for us to talk about a slight error that you might run into. Well, I've got a little warning here saying that something is already running on port 3000. It says that it's probably something here, and just to let you into a little secret, this is my reference code that I've already written ready for this lesson. All right, don't tell anyone. But it's saying that, hey, you've already got something running on this port. We can't run two things on one port. Well, you can, but things get confused. So it's saying, hey, would you like to run this app on another port instead? Now, one of the cool things about this here is it's saying kind of, this is what you can tell it. You can either hit Y for yes or N for no. The uppercase Y here is saying that this is the default. So if I do nothing and I just hit return or hit enter now, it will answer yes. If I, for example, want to go and shut all of that software down and go and I definitely want to use port 3000, which might be required. There might be some other software that's interacting with this and it can only use 3000 or something like that. So, there might be reasons why we don't want to change the port. But yeah, I do. I've got nothing that's running on here that I need it to have 3000. This can be pretty much any of the unused ports that are available, which is anything above, I think, about 2000. You're probably safe. There's a few that get used for different things, but 3000 is quite a commonly used one for React applications and kind of JavaScript applications. Okay, so I can either here, I can just hit Y for yes, or I could have just hit enter. And now you'll see something slightly different has happened. So it's actually said you can now view the pizzeria. And if you remember to the last lesson, it said on localhost 3000, it's now actually saying 3001. Or I could go to it on my phone, for example, at 192.168.1.186, because that's the IP address of my computer. Don't worry, not the IP address of my internet or anything like that, just on my local network. You'll probably have a similar one, unless you're maybe doing this in the office. It might say like 10 dot something or 172 dot something. But if you're at home, the likelihood is that the first two numbers will be this. This will be a 1 or a 0, and then this will be some other numbers. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. IP addressing is a whole other subject, and that's for kind of a network engineering course anyway. So what has now opened up on my second screen is our previous hi, welcome to my website. Well, brilliant. So instead of having just that hi, welcome to my website, let me just do that kind of half and half screening again. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up a kind of banner component that we can use in our front page. We could use somewhere else. We can make this kind of really nice reusable component. So just for now, I'm going to leave this hi, welcome to my website, but we will be removing that later. So the first thing that I want to do, just to keep us organized, is I'm going to go into our src file, our source folder here. I'm just going to make another folder called, or directory, sorry, called components. Ooh, and spell it correctly. Components. Now, if you're using the Better Icons plugin, you'll get this little kind of Lego brick here on your folder icon, which is quite nice, I think. And inside this components folder, I'm going to make a file called hero, sorry, with a capital H, hero.js. Just a capital H because that's convention for files. If you do it lowercase, make sure you don't change it later because you can get some odd warnings. You know, especially when we get a bit further down the line. Make sure that you keep things 100% consistent. Now, if you want to do it kind of correctly, if you like, in terms of the documentation and how convention tells us that we should do it, you should have an uppercase first letter here. This should be an uppercase letter. You can see actually our app.js that was made by our by Create React app, that also has an uppercase A. Now in this scenario, it doesn't really make much of a difference, but I will call you out on it if you submit some homework that doesn't have the correct casing. Now, in this instance, inside our hero.js file, the casing really does matter. It really, really does matter. So let's just go ahead and kind of make this hero function just so that it says something. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to have to say function, and we will call this hero banner. Now, this does matter. This uppercase H here does matter. It must be an uppercase, otherwise your app will not work. React kind of does this checking to say, hey, this component, the name of it must start with an uppercase letter. So go ahead and make our function. We should be pretty well versed at this now. And then because we're going to be using this function elsewhere in our app, we're going to be importing it somewhere, we need to export this function. So we will say export default hero banner, just like that. Oh, and probably should spell it correctly and use the auto complete. Brilliant. So yeah, in the same way that, you know, when you import something, it has to have been exported. You know, when you get your, you know, your really high quality products from Temu or from from eBay or whatever, you import those from China, but they have to have been exported from China, and that's all that we're doing here. Okay, so a couple of things that we want to do. Let's just from here return a h1 of banner component, just so that we know that it's kind of working and it's imported correctly. Of course, absolutely nothing has appeared here because we're not actually rendering it to our application. Okay, so let's go to our app.js, and in our app.js, right at the top of the file, what we want to do is we want to import, and the name of the function, so hero banner, and you'll notice that it's actually kind of saying, hey, I think I've found this hero banner component in /components/hero. So if we just hit enter now, or return, sorry, it will actually autocomplete that for us. I'm just going to undo this so that we can kind of talk about exactly what it is that we're doing. So we're going to import hero banner. Where do we want to import it from? Where's kind of the path for this hero banner? So we'll say that we want to get it from, and then it's a string that we need. We need to give it a string of the file path from app.js. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to say, hey, go into the same folder. Go into this source folder here. So the way that we do that, just like we would in the command line, is we say dot. And then, so we're in the current folder with the current working directory, slash, and then we want to go into components. Brilliant, and it's come up with this here. Now this is a really good a good way of kind of making sure you're in the right place. So I know that I want the components. Brilliant, I can see that it's there. However, if I accidentally did something like this, I'd be like, well, where the heck's my components? You know, I'm obviously trying to get it to go into the wrong place. So dot slash components slash hero. And that's where our hero banner is kind of located. So save that now. Oh, and we're getting a warning of hero banner is defined, but it's never used. Great, that's fine. We'll use it here. So we're going to have hi, welcome to my website right there. And then underneath it, we're going to put our hero banner. We need to close our component like that. We are getting a warning here saying JSX expressions must have one parent element. Well, we've got two elements here. And in fact, if I save this now, we get this big red error saying, JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. One of them is that we could maybe put all of this inside a div, just like this. And that div, if I just do Option Shift and F to format that nicely, this div then becomes the one parent component of our hi, welcome to my website and our hero banner. Let's just save that now, see what we get. Ah, brilliant, we get the banner component because I can't spell apparently. And hi, welcome to my website. Brilliant, we've now got those two kind of component, or those two bits of HTML or JSX rendered to our website. The only thing is what if we don't actually want it to be a div? Maybe there's some reason. Maybe we've got individual list elements that are their own components. You kind of don't want each of those in a div. We just want the list elements. Well, what we can do is we can use something called a JSX fragment. And a JSX fragment looks like this. Now, don't try putting this in actual HTML code. It'll probably not work and it'll give you some weird behavior. But in JSX, this is kind of a way of saying, hey, this is a parent element that kind of doesn't exist. It's nothing other than a parent element. So this is kind of a nice way that we can say, yep, we've just got one parent element with lots of child elements, but we don't actually want it to be a HTML tag when it gets rendered out to the browser. Just something to bear in mind. Great, so we've got our hero banner there. Let's now go ahead and import our Bulma CSS, and let's style this up so it looks a little bit nicer. So let's go ahead and just have a look at the Bulma documentation. I've put a link to this page down in the section underneath this video. And how to install Bulma? Well, what we can do is we can use CSS importing. It's quite nice and easy. We can also use HTML link, maybe if we wanted to use Bulma in just what you might call a vanilla JS website. This is how you would grab all of that code. There is another way of doing it, and we can actually kind of download all of the CSS and all of the styles into our application and kind of use them directly, so that then when we build our React application to deploy it on, I don't know, Fly.io or onto Heroku or onto AWS or something like that, we've then got that code and we kind of control that code. We control versioning and all that kind of stuff. So what we can do is we can actually use npm install Bulma. Again, I've put this down below, but if you can go ahead and just copy this command here. Head back to our React application in VS Code. And I'm just going to stop my server here with Control and C. And that's the same on Windows and Mac. And then I'm just going to paste in npm install Bulma and hit return. Now this may take a short amount of time or a long amount of time. Brilliant, that worked quite well. Again, remember what we said about vulnerabilities, don't really worry about them. Now if we go to our package.json, we will now see that we've got Bulma here. Fantastic. That is now kind of installed into our node modules here, ready for us to use later on. Brilliant. So what we want to do is we want Bulma to be available to the entirety of our application. So we need to kind of import it as early on as possible. So the entry point of our application is this index.js here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to import our Bulma code into this file. So here where I'm importing index.css, I'm going to import, and then we want to import a string of Bulma /css/bulma.min.css. And that's just kind of, we're saying go into the Bulma package, go to the CSS folder, and then get the minified code. And minified code is basically just compressed down with all of the stuff that makes it look nice and neat and easy for developers to read. It just kind of takes all of that stuff out just to make the file size as small as possible. Because if we're sending this code over the internet to somebody, yeah, it's probably fine if they're on a cable connection with a 10 gigabyte corporate internet connection. Probably not so much if they're on a mobile phone and they're on a train and they're trying to get a bit of signal. So we want the smallest amount of code as possible. So brilliant. Let's go ahead and use this in our application now. So if I save this index.js, nothing will change on our site because we're not actually using any of Bulma's kind of functionality. So let's head now to our hero.js. We want to take away this banner component here, and we want to return something a little more interesting. So this will cause issues probably, but in Bulma, I implore you to go and have another read of the documentations if you've not already. But in layout here, you'll see that there's hero. And this is what we actually want to create. And it says, yeah, brilliant. It's an imposing hero banner to showcase something. And what's it look like? Well, a plain one is just the text. We can also give it colors really easily with just class names. There's also sizes, so a small hero, a medium hero, and a large hero if you want. I think probably a medium hero with kind of a primary sort of green is the best one, but feel free to do whatever suits you. Great, so the way that we can do this is let's go and have a look at something that we want. So we need a section with the class of hero is medium, and then this deals with the color. This blue is link. I'm going to make it the is primary green. We need a div inside it with the class of hero-body, and then we need P classes with either title or subtitle as their classes. Brilliant. Let's go ahead and do that. Feel free to just pause the video, go ahead and do that, and then you can kind of skip through what I'm doing. But if you'd like to do it with me, follow along. So the first thing that we need is a section. Wonderful. And Bulma, we've got the autocomplete for the closing section there as well. Inside this, we need a div, and inside this, we need some p tags. And this first p tag is going to say, welcome to the Flat Pack Pizzeria. You can call it whatever you want, of course. I would keep it pizza themed because later on as we build this app, everything's going to be pizza themed. So, and then let's give it a little tagline with P, love at first bite. Bite, like computer bite. Anyway, never mind. So, welcome to the Flatpack Pizzeria, love at first bite. So if we save this now, I doubt anything really will have changed. No, absolutely. Even if I refresh the page, let's go ahead and start our server again. So npm start. And yes, I want to do that because I'm running something on port 3000 already. And when it starts, okay, so there's been a little bit of styling happened because the default kind of Bulma styles have been applied to our text and stuff like that, but not what we actually wanted to happen. Well, that's because we've not added our class names. Now, in JSX, so when we think back to HTML, we would add classes like this. Class equals, and then something like this. We would add our classes here. Now, there is a bit of a problem with this, in that JSX will try and understand that you want a HTML class here, but in JavaScript, class is a keyword. So we really shouldn't be using this, and we can run into some pretty major problems if we don't do this correctly. So what we actually need to say is class name, like this. So let's give this a class name of hero. And if you're not sure what to put here, just refer back to the Bulma documentation. I have a reference on my second screen, so that's where I'm able to get this from. So we've got hero, and then we want the medium size, so we'll say is-medium. And then we want that primary green color. I mean, again, you can give it whatever color you want. I'm going to say is-primary. So if I save this now, oh, excellent, we actually have kind of those p tags wrapped in this green color. It's not quite there for sizing and stuff yet, but we haven't finished yet. So this div needs a class name, and you see it's actually kind of suggesting class name for us, of hero dash body. Then our p tags, well, we need one as a title and one as a subtitle. So we'll say class name, title, and class name, subtitle. So if I save this now, we can see things happening behind our code editor here. And there we go, we've got our big hero image. So what have we actually done here? Actually, we can probably go back and remove this from our app.js if we so desire. So what have we actually done here? We've created a hero component using good kind of best practices with our file system. We've got that in a components folder. We have imported that into React, into our app.js here. And not only that, but we've also discovered some stuff from the Bulma documentation. We have imported Bulma here at the top level of our application into our index.js. And then further down in our components, we've actually used the Bulma classes to style up some of our website for us. Now, this is far, far faster, I think you'll agree, than trying to write out all of the CSS that's supposed to go in this app.css or in a different CSS file. So next up, what we'll do is we'll actually start looking at creating reusable kind of card components or product components.